Cool. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll just start off. I just wanted to say like a big thank you to the Snappy Gurus guys just for inviting me on. Very cool. And please bear with me. This is the first time I'm doing anything like this, so I am a little bit nervous. But yeah, we'll crack on, see how things go. So yeah, my name is James Morgan. I work at a lovely company called Flix Interactive. Just kind of a little bit about myself, really. I've been in the industry for around 5 years now. I think it'll be coming up to 5 years in September. I originally started off at Rockstar, working on Red Dead Redemption Online and some of the content for GTA Online. I moved on from there and went to a small independent app development company for mobile games and web games, working on things like Android, iOS, etc. I was there for around 2 years before moving on to Flix Interactive, where I've been now for coming up to 2 years. I think it'll be in December. Which is very cool. And as you can see, this is the lovely team, the lovely QA team at Flix, and that's me in the horrible green jacket. Just a little bit about Flix. Some of you may have heard kind of some of this stuff already from my colleague Tom earlier in the week. So I won't bore you for too long, but for those of you who haven't heard, Flix are a small co-development company based in the Midlands. And we've done some awesome projects. We've worked with some awesome people. A little bit before my time, but projects like Crackdown 3 and Worms Rumble. And then more recently, things like Sea of Thieves, Hell Let Loose, Zombie Army 4, and some of the more recent stuff, Sniper Elite 5, where we've been doing some of the stuff for the DLC. Obviously, can't talk about too much. But if you do want to check out any of the stuff that we've been doing, please drop us a follow on Twitter. We are also hiring. So if there is anybody in the UK that is interested and looking for work, please check out the website at www.flixinteractive.com. Yeah, so kind of moving on to the first slide of what is the kind of the main role of a QA tester. And obviously, the biggest thing is testing games. You know, we test the games, and the way I always like to kind of describe my job to kind of like my elderly grandparents and people who don't really understand the industry, you know, some friends and stuff, is I play video games all day, but it really isn't that. That's not the job at all. There's so much more kind of in-depth stuff that QA do on a day-to-day basis that keeps things fun and keeps things interesting. You know, we are playing the games, but we're also, you know, we're finding and locating bugs across new and old features. We're doing a lot of communication kind of between teams, you know, developers, engineers, artists, designers, production, all sorts, kind of bouncing back and forth. And when people think of QA, you know, you think, wow, you know, you're going to be testing all this game for yourself. It's not like that at all. You know, you'll be testing a lot of the time in like a small team. You'll be testing specific sections. You know, so you'll be on one assignment and you'll get to know that small section, you know, inside and out. Whereas another colleague of yours might be doing their own little section, doing their own kind of little thing that they'll know inside and out. But one of the main ones that, like the main things I kind of wanted to bring up on this slide was there's a lot of things that people don't know that QA do. Things like performance reports. Performance reports is a really big kind of, it's an important step in the development cycle, and, you know, gaining these reports to figure out, you know, oh, why is this level dropping to 20 FPS when this other level's perfectly fine? Why is this spiking the RAM up to 25 gig when, you know, this other level isn't doing that? learning things like that is super important. And giving feedback. A lot of people think that QA are just there to test the game, and we are one of the people that we play all day, every day. Giving that feedback and being able to kind of articulate, this is not fun, or this is really frustrating, or this could be a little bit. It's a really important part of the role. You'll also be going back and testing old content. You won't always necessarily be on the brand new piece of content that's coming out, or this new and exciting project. You will be going back and you will be testing the old content to make sure nothing has kind of cropped back up in the new stuff and broke things that players are already experiencing and players are already enjoying. You'll also be doing stuff like localization testing. If you speak a second language, this is so valuable for localization. We've had tests before where, especially kind of the pictorial languages like Korean, Chinese, Japanese, etc., where little translations mean something completely different in a different culture. So having that second language is incredibly important, but it's not like necessary. And you will kind of just be going through and checking all the text in all various different areas, which was something I never knew before I started in the industry and started in QA. So that was incredibly important. As well as things like automation testing, you will be I don't do it much personally, but I know friends who work at various other companies who they rely significantly on a lot of kind of automated tests and making sure that once it's all been manually checked, the automated tests are running well. Things like spreadsheets and tutorials, you'll be doing a lot of that stuff as well. Making sure that people know, how does this feature work, or is all this stuff documented? Things like that. So I did want to show just a very quick video. The audio may not play. You may have seen this video before. But I love this video. I think it's absolutely hilarious. I relate to this a lot. So you may not be able to hear the audio, but you'll get the idea.
The square.
That's right. It goes in the square hole.
Yes. Okay.
And how about this rectangle? That one
Also the square.
that goes in there too.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got this thin rectangle.
The thin
Can you guess
rectangle.
where that goes?
The thin rectangle.
That's right. It goes in the square hole. And up next, a cylinder.
The circle.
I think that goes in
The circle.
the square hole. Now, we've also got this semicircle right here. Do you see a slot that would fit
The semicircle.
semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right. It's the square hole. Okay. Up next, the triangle. We know what hole that goes
The
into,
triangle.
right?
Triangle.
That's right. The square hole. And up next, we have the arch.
The arch. The
And
arch.
you guessed it.
The arch.
It goes in the square hole.
I love that video. I think it's fantastic, and it is very much the kind of the QA way. Things like that do happen. You do have to upset some designers sometimes. So that kind of moves me on to my next slide for communication. And I think this is something that's incredibly important, especially in QA, of being able to articulate yourself and communicate effectively and well. Being able to voice the way things are happening, and the way you're thinking and your thought process. You being able to find a bug and understand it fully is one thing, but being able to write out the thought process and the process that you've taken and have somebody else understand it is so important. And a big tip that I got from like an ex-colleague of mine was, when you're writing a bug, you should be able to walk outside, walk out of the office, grab someone on the street, bring them in, show them your bug report, and they can read through it, go in the game, and just be able to follow it step by step to replicate your bug with no prior knowledge. Now, obviously, this is very subjective because majority of the time, the bug reports that you're going to be submitting are going to be people who they know what they're talking about. They know the systems. They know the various different areas of the game. But every now and again, you may get a tester that's new to the project or a producer that's not had chance to jump into the project for 2-3 months potentially. And having them be able to look at the bug, read it through, and understand exactly what's going on is invaluable. It's fantastic. So definitely kind of learn to articulate yourself in a way that not only you can understand, but other people can too. But words aren't always everything. And footage and images of bugs that are happening are invaluable. They speak 1,000 words. If you can, even if you could articulate yourself perfectly, sometimes you could just drop a video or drop a picture on a bug, show it to the developer, show it to the designer. They'll look at it for 2 seconds and go, right, yeah, I know what's happening. They're so valuable, and they're not always possible. Some bugs don't apply for pictures and videos, but if it is something you can get, grab them. Do whatever you can. We use a lot of things like OBS and even the Windows game bar for grabbing clips. You don't always know when a bug's going to come up. If you can just quickly click Windows G, pull up the game bar, 30 seconds, you've got your footage then and there. Make sure to get that footage. It's incredibly important. And as I say, if you can show a developer, they'll probably know a little bit more about like the little feature, or they may know a little bit how things work more on a deeper level. They can look at a picture or a video and just go, yep, I know what's happening. But then coming to communication for feedback, don't be too harsh. If you're giving feedback to the devs, and you think, oh, this feature could be improved, or this is really frustrating, or things like that, don't be too harsh. These developers, they're people too. You don't want to be tearing apart their baby that they've worked for 6-12 months on. But make it constructive. Offer up a solution. If you think something is bad or you think something could be tweaked, don't just message a developer and say, this is bad, I don't like it. Give them a reason, give them a possible solution, and like most of the time, they'll really appreciate just you taking the time to offer up suggestions. And don't be disheartened either if they don't take your feedback on board. Sometimes they know the kind of direction they want to go in. The way your feedback might be pushed may not be quite what they were looking for. So don't be too worried about it. And don't be scared of people either. I know when I very first started in the industry, I was terrified to kind of message a dev or message a designer and be like, oh, hi, I think this feels a little off, or can we tweak this? Or even just, I've got a really bad bug. And it absolutely terrified me. But, they're all human. They're all people. And as long as they aren't rushed off their feet, they're going to want to chat. They're going to want to talk to you about the thing that they're passionate about, their feature, this thing that they've worked on for months. And if you're passionate about it as well and you want to improve it for the players, all the more reason to. So the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was just kind of little interview tips. And it's a tip that I kind of hold very, very dearly to my heart personally. And I won't bang on about this too long because I'm sure people have probably heard some interview stuff earlier in the week. But when you go to your interviews, if you are kind of looking to get into the games industry, whether it's for QA, whether it's for designers, artists, animators, whatever. Be yourself. You know, go in there and talk about what you're passionate about. Be a person, as I like to say. Because it shows the company that games is part of your life. It's not your life. You know, if you've got passions outside of gaming and outside of making games, you know, if it's something like myself, I'm a big climber. I like going bouldering, climbing. Things like that can really help form bonds and get to know your team. And it allows you to integrate a lot better into a team as well. Kind of take a smooth transition from starting your job to becoming part of the team. In my interview, I spoke about bouldering, I spoke about climbing, and just so happened that the person interviewing me was also a climber, and we had a little 5-minute chat about that, and you know, it really broke the ice, and kind of it helped me to become a lot more comfortable in the interview, and I'd like to think that it helped them as well. And another one of, you know, read the room first, obviously, but crack a joke. You know, if you can break the ice and make things more enjoyable for both you and the interviewer, it makes for such a more enjoyable environment. And when you get into your job and you can crack that joke and, you know, look back on it, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. But also, don't get disheartened if you don't get a job from your interview. I think this is a big one. Qualifications obviously are big. They mean a lot, but they don't mean everything. Sometimes it's just you as a person or them as a company just don't kind of clash together. And that's no reflection on you or them. It's just something that just potentially might not work. But eventually you will find the company that you guys will both click together, and it will make such an enjoyable experience for both of you. So definitely important. So moving on to the next slide, learning within QA. A lot of people always say like QA is an amazing way as a foot in the door. It's a gateway into the industry. But don't go into QA thinking, right, I'm going to go straight into QA, and then within a few months, I'm going to move to art, I'm going to move to design, I'm going to move to production, etc. It's going to take some time. And I've seen it where kind of people have gone in, they've applied for a job, and they've put in their portfolio and they've put in their like cover letter or CV that they're really passionate about design, they're really passionate about art, etc. And that's good, that's great. You know, showing that you are passionate about making games is good. But don't make it out in your CV that you're going into this QA role expecting that within a few weeks, months, years, etc., you're going to move straight away. Because I think a lot of QA teams nowadays, they are looking for people that they want to stick with QA. They want to stay within the team. They don't want to kind of hire someone and then train them up 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, etc. They go, oh, I'm moving to the art team. That's not to say, though, that doesn't happen. You know, you'll get to work with so many different disciplines. You know, every single day you'll be working with the artists. You'll be bouncing back and forth with the designers. You'll be communicating in meetings with the engineers. You'll be in meetings with production. You'll be in talks every single day with those people. And it's surprising how much you will learn from just being able to sit in and talk to them and communicate back and forth between, oh, how does this work? Is this meant to work this way? Like, how was this subbed? What was done here? And taking that time to interact with these incredible people who know, like for me as an example, they know far more than I do. if you can sit with them for 10 minutes and they can just talk through a process or talk through a procedure in engine with you that you can then go to take back to the game to testing, invaluable. It really, really helps. And, you pick up so many little different tips and tricks of, oh, I didn't know that worked this way. Or, we could try doing this direction or that direction rather than going in blind. And you'd be surprised how much just communicating and back and forth with those people, how much you can learn. And then the pivotal role we play as QA within the industry. We are the last line of defense. Obviously devs and different people, they're going to be working tirelessly to get these bugs fixed and make sure that the product is the best it can be, but things do slip through. And QA most of the time are the last people that are going to play and experience this gameplay loop or new level that you've made before it goes out to the public. And believe it or not, towards the end of the project, once things are released, QA do things like go onto YouTube, go onto Twitch, go onto Twitter, go onto Reddit. We do look through that sort of stuff, and if people are feeding back on various hashtags or subreddits, things like that, we do keep an eye on that stuff because that feedback is invaluable. There's things that we may have missed that the public may have done completely differently to us. And if we can get that information, feed it back to the developers and they can fix it within 10 minutes, even better. I've had personally experiences where we've gone through, we've tested everything, bug-free, perfect. It's been released to the public after 6 months, and within an hour, spotted something that the public have bumped into on a Twitch stream that, oh God, we didn't see this. This is an important part of the game. Straight to the developers, fixed within 10 minutes, it's patched the next day. And it really does help just getting that feedback and seeing that feedback from the public and, watching them play, because everybody plays differently. The way QA tests may not be the way that people play through your level, seeing, oh, well, so-and-so streamer went the left path rather than the right path. Why did they do that? What directed them towards it? And especially with Twitch, hearing their live feedback is amazing. And it's really gratifying as well, seeing people enjoying the levels and stuff that you've worked on for however many months. Feeding back to the developers as well, I've mentioned this kind of already, but we play this game all day, every day. If we don't think it's fun to test, more than likely the public aren't going to think it's fun to play. If we're getting stuck trying to play test something and we're stuck there for half an hour, more than likely the public are going to do that as well. And it's going to be annoying. Feed that stuff back to the developers, because they should be taking that stuff on board and should be able to look at it from, we play this game all day, this is getting frustrating for us. If we don't want to do it and it's our job to test it, someone in the public who could just close the game and go play something else, they're not going to want to do it even more. So, yeah, they're not going to want to use their free time. Investigation time as well. Devs don't always have the time to jump in and quickly test something or have the time to sit for hours and hours and hours on end. It's another reason why QA are so important. Developers do test their own stuff and they do take the time to, I'll check this before it goes to the main build for QA, but they don't have hours and hours and days upon end to sit and pick through and comb through every single little path or route or direction that players could take. And that's where kind of QA comes in, to take that time and pass through every little direction that you can. And it kind of brings me on to my next point in my notes of being creative. People think that QA is a very direct kind of, you sit and you play, but it allows you to be creative in your own way. Although you may not be directly making things like assets or features, you've got to think of the way to sit through and, well, if players want to take path A or path B, how can we be creative to like engineer a path C that doesn't really exist and it shouldn't exist? But can we trick the game into doing that? Is there a way that we can do that to break things and make things awkward? And taking that creative freedom to try and take steps that no normal person would make. But then it comes into, would they? Would players be able to take those steps relatively easily? You know, is this something that we've spent 4 hours to reproduce? We've done this step, that step, done this, done that. Or is it something that we've kind of just jumped in, spent 10 minutes doing, and it's done, and it's broken everything? Being able to feed that back and being clear on how bad these things are. You know, if we've spent 4 hours and it's only happened once, that's not too bad. If you spent 10 minutes doing it and you've got it 10 times, depending on the effect, that could be quite detrimental to the player base. And being able to get in there and give that back and tell the developers, look, we found this thing, we've got it to break 10 times in 10 minutes, this needs fixing. Or, oh, we've spent 4 hours doing it, we've only seen it once. This may not get seen. It might. It's a bad effect. We should fix it anyway. But it might not. That's up to you to decide, and up to the developers to kind of decide on where they want to go with fixing and the next steps. So then a few just kind of a little tips and tricks from myself, and I've put these in little bullet points. So I'll reel them off for now and go into a little more detail as we go. But checking your environment, checking your build number, checking your documentation, checking with the devs, being prepared to fight fires, and enjoying working with awesome people. Environments are important. You know, if you're on a certain branch or a certain device and you start freaking out, it's like, oh no, I found this really bad bug that, you know, it's affecting launching the game. I can't even get in. It's crashing. It's doing this, that, and the other. Check your environment, because sometimes it trips everyone up at some point. You could be testing on the brand new iPhone when actually this bug isn't, you know, this feature isn't compatible. Or you're testing on an old Android and the game that you're making isn't compatible with this old Android, or even with like different dev streams, different dev branches. Check your environment, because if you're on the wrong one and you start raising bugs and causing more fires than need to be made, essentially, you can cause a lot of panic. Just taking that 2 seconds just to check your environment, check what area you're testing in, can make a whole world of difference, and it can save people so much time. Very similar with the build number. You know, if you're going out and you're freaking out about this horrible crash or this really bad bug that is affecting every player, it's stopping people testing the game, and the developer said, oh, it's fixed. Check the build number you're on to the build number the fix has been submitted in, because sometimes it may just be one little bit out and you've caused this whole fuss and ruckus of, oh, it's not fixed, it's still broken, but actually it's not fixed yet because it's not in the build. Very similar with documentation. You know, if documentation gets updated and things change to say, actually it should be happening like this now, if you're freaking out like, oh no, you know, this is broken, it's not doing what it's meant to be doing, it's changed, check the documentation. The developers may have changed slightly the design and gone, actually, we want to go in this direction with it now. Being able to just check through that documentation and read how things should be able to work can help, again, saving a lot of time. And fighting fires, you know, as a QA tester, you will eventually come up against some fires. There will be a day where you come in the morning, within the first 10 minutes, you've found a crash, and you've got literally no idea what's caused this crash. You can't get into the game, you're struggling. You've got to bring this stuff up with producers, with other test members, with developers, with engineers, to try and kit bash together what this thing could be causing it, you know. because it's stopping people from working, and it halts the progress of kind of getting this product out the door. Expect those days. It's going to happen. But that kind of brings me on to my final point of just enjoy working with amazing, friendly, lovely people on awesome, incredibly fun, amazing projects, and enjoy it. You know, the games industry is a fantastic industry to work in. And just make the most and enjoy. And that kind of brings me on to the last little video that I've got, kind of bringing it back to the old one, but hopefully by the end of the project, you'll be able to do something like this.
Is a rectangle. Can you guess where that goes?
The square.
That's right. The square hole.
Yeah.
Up next, we have a triangle. Do you see a
The
hole
triangle.
that'll fit the triangle?
The triangle.
That's right. The triangle hole. Up next, the circle or cylinder.
The
Can
circle.
you guess where that goes?
The circle.
That's right. The circle hole. We also have an arch. That goes in
Arch?
the arch
Oh
hole.
my god.
We also have a semicircle.
The semicircle.
Do you see a hole that would fit the semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right. The semicircle. There's a thin rectangle. That goes in
The
the
thin.
thin rectangle hole.
Oh my god.
And last, we have a square.
The square.
You guessed it. That's right. The square hole.
Yes!
Yeah. So hopefully by the end of the project, you'll be able to do that, and both you and your developers will be able to cry tears of joy when all the fires have been put out and you release an amazing product to the public. Start it again. There we go. Yeah, so that was kind of everything from me. Yeah, thank you very much for listening, everyone. And if you've got any questions, I've seen some in the chat. I'll kind of go through those now. But if you've got any questions, to pop them in the chat. So a quick question from Sam. How often do you find that people from QA transfer into different production roles, and do you find that it's frowned upon or encouraged? As I kind of mentioned earlier, it definitely does happen. And it happens more frequently than you'd think. Definitely, you know. We've got a guy at our work at the moment. Actually, no, two guys. They've been there a number of years, you know, and they both started in QA. One of the guys really decided that once he'd started working in QA, he wanted to push for, you know, I want to be a designer. I really like design. I think this role would be good for me. So he took his time outside of work to go and learn things like UE4 and Unity and things like that to kind of push himself to learn those skills. And at the moment, he's one of our best designers. He's great. And he originally started in QA. Similarly to one of the other guys, Andy. He's awesome. He started in QA and now he's a producer. He's working on some production with us for various different projects. Yeah, he originally started in QA, but it does happen. But as I kind of mentioned before, don't go straight into QA thinking, I'm going to move. I'm going to start in QA. I'll be there a few weeks or a few months. I'm gonna move on. If managers in QA kind of read that in your CV and they can tell that you're someone that might want to move on, it may kind of reflect negatively. Go wholeheartedly into the QA, and you'll be surprised how much you learn, even from like an art perspective or a production perspective. And if you can pick up on that and learn those skills, and then later down the line go, actually, you know what? I want to progress into production. Take the steps while you're working to, you know, I'll help out with this documentation here, or various different steps. So it is possible to move. Question from Agnes. For communication part, do you talk to the devs a lot in text or via both online and face-to-face voice? Both. I think it very much depends on the company and the size of the teams. For us, as an example, if I flick back a few pages, we're only a very small team. There's 7 of us at the moment. So for us, it's very much we're jumping into meetings with developers, designers every single day, because we think that it's really important that QA knows just as much as everyone else does. You know, we're the guys that are going through and we're testing these processes. And if you can just literally just on Teams or on Slack or Skype or whatever various communication platform you're using, if you can just drop someone a message and go, "Hi, can we jump in a call quickly and just have a chat over this?" It's so much more useful. And then your second question was, can I use the experience from one-day playtesting, giving the feedback towards game devs around the game from playing their game, from games development company for QA testing roles? Definitely. Definitely. If you go into your QA interview, if you do apply, and mention that you've done playtests for various companies. Oh, I've done a playtest for, I don't know, let's say like a Ubisoft, as an example, on a beta, or I've done a playtest for this, and I found various different bugs. You know, that'll definitely reflect well, 100%. Question from Rox. I'm actually curious to ask the opposite. How difficult is it to transfer from, example, an art department or from a background that is not games industry related to QA? Definitely not difficult at all, Rox. I had a guy in my old company. He was a coder, and he decided that, you know what, coding's not really for me. I'm not enjoying this as much as I thought I would coming out of university and coming out of courses. I want to go into something else. I want to go into QA, and he transferred straight over. As long as you can show that passion and that you can show that, you know, I really enjoy this. I enjoy these games. I enjoy doing this work. It's definitely possible. And in terms of moving from different backgrounds, say, as an example, if you're a coder and you've got coding experience from networking, as an example, if you want to move into games and you want to progress and do, even as an example, network coding for games, definitely possible. Definitely possible. Even moving into like different departments entirely, if you can just show that you've got a skill that you can progress and push to help out a team, you know, if it's coding experience, if it's art experience, you can move wherever needs be and kind of push your needs. Question from Hexa. How big is a QA team? I think that depends, Hexa. It depends on the size of the company and the kind of the size of the project you're working on. Some QA teams can be, you know, upwards of 100 to 200 people plus. Some teams can be 30 to 40. Some teams can be like us, around 5 to 7 people. Some teams you could literally be the only QA and you're working on stuff solo. It really depends on the sort of project you're working and how much time and investment it's going to need to make sure that that product is up to scratch. You know, if there's a lot of different elements and a lot of different things to bounce in between, you're probably going to need a lot of people. You're going to need a lot of time and investment into making sure that that product is as good as it can be. Yeah. Question again from Hex. What's the department you often struggle with? Me personally, I struggle with communicating with coders and engineers only because I am not a coder or an engineer in the slightest. I know nothing about code. And when they start to get technical, it fries my brain. But that's not the same for everyone, you know. I like me personally, I went to university. I kind of focused on art. I did a games design course. I focused on the art side. So I relate more to the artists, talking with those guys. Whereas code just confuses me. But it's different for everyone. Question from Sam. How big of a learning curve would you say there is if you hired as a QA tester with no previous experience? I think it depends, Sam. It depends what you're coming from and how different the project is. Like, believe me, there is a learning curve. There is a steep learning curve, and there will be a lot that you can learn. So if you kind of take it slow, take bits, take bits as they come, and pick up on little things. You're not expected to learn everything straight away. You're not going to be expected to just get dropped in after a week and go, right, test the game now. People will give you that leeway. As with every job, you're allowed to make mistakes. It does happen. As long as you learn from those mistakes and you can progress and become better, that learning curve will kind of steadily go up, and eventually it'll spike, and things will get a little bit difficult, and then it teeters off, and you pick things up and you learn. But every project is different. Like for us, with an example, working on Sniper Elite is very different to working on Sea of Thieves. You'll be learning constantly, and depending on who you work with and where and what project and what engine, everything will be different. There's always something new to learn. Question from Agnes again. When someone interviewing a person, do they want to see you play all various game genres or specific game genres when entering the QA role? I wouldn't say it's a necessary. One of my interviews, I think from a gameplay perspective, people like to see that you've got interests other than the game you're going to be testing. So say if you're going to be going to test Call of Duty and you really express your passion for first-person shooters, great, amazing. But they also like to see that you've got interests in other type of games. Board games, as an example, is a great one. If you really love board games, or you really love sandbox RPGs, or just really calming like city builders, being able to look at something from a different perspective from someone else is really important, and it can help kind of find bugs that other people wouldn't. If you can find that little slot, it's great, because you can find bugs that other people wouldn't be able to. And overall, that's good for the game. That's always going to be good for just the overall product in general, really. Question from Rox. How often do you actually send that funny video you put in the presentation in the Team Grid? All the time. All the time. I did prepare this slide. I was like, I don't know if I'll show it, but I did prepare an extra little slide just to put at the end of QA memes. These are frequent. These always happen. QA memes are great. Some of them you'd need to kind of get into the QA mindset, but they're amazing. It works on my machine. Is this one? You send this to a developer and they get slightly angry, but yeah, it's good fun. What are the most frequent feedback you give regarding art department? Most frequent feedback. So let's take a level as an example. Say if it's a jumping puzzle level, you're running through, you've got to each jump, you've got to the progression, you've got right to the end, and then that final jump, you cannot get that jump. It's just not happening. You've tried for 2 hours, nobody's been able to get to the top because the ledge that you're meant to be landing on needs adjusting, or it needs making larger, the hitbox needs to be made bigger, or even things like this texture that is on this let's say it's a building. The texture on the building is really difficult on the eyes. I'm struggling to concentrate when we're in this building. Something that's just come back to me actually, which was really important, and I did want to touch on. I completely forgot about this, but things like accessibility and the art department. I had a guy who I used to work with in a previous job who he was red and green colorblind. And we had a large, like, kind of big spinning wheel that it was win or lose. And the win section was green, the lose section was red. And we had to feed that back to the designers because he said, well, have I won or haven't I won? I'm confused. I can't see the difference. I don't know whether I've won or lost because of, his color blindness, and being able to feed that back to say, this is something that could potentially cause trouble for players. Can we get that changed to something that's more appropriate to make that people can, it's accessible for everyone. Little things like that are super important. Question from Sam: do QA testers also test sound design or general audio mix within it? Definitely, Sam, all the time. If you're jumping into a level and you start the level and all of a sudden your ears are getting destroyed by some really loud music, or you've jumped into a section and an NPC is talking but you can't hear them over the audio, feed that back. That's a bug. That's something that needs to be brought up because it's going to negatively impact players' experiences. If you like thinking about it from the perspective of a player, if you jump into a level and you're talking to an NPC and you can't hear a word they're saying because the audio is really annoying and loud, it's something that needs bringing up. Sound design, maybe not so much, but it can definitely be brought up as feedback. So if you're in a level and it's really noisy and annoying and things are playing at the wrong times, feed that back. It may not get changed if design like the way it's feeling and playing. They may keep it, but if you feed it back and say, I've played this level 20 times today and this soundbite is really annoying and it's like burning my ears, it's feedback and it's valuable feedback that they can kind of take into account then and go, actually, maybe it is a little bit annoying to hear it on repeat over and over again. Or, if players want to keep replaying that level, that may be something that they'll avoid it because they don't want to hear that sound again, Yeah. If there's any more questions, feel free to stick them in. But if not, yeah, thank you all very much, and thank you all for the questions. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you for doing talk for us.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Much appreciated. If anybody does want to have a chat about anything else, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter or anything. Happy to carry on talking, have a chat about anything. So, yes, thank you very much.